December 16, 1944. 0530 hours. Schnee Eifel Ridge, Belgian-German border. The frozen soil cracked under boots as German units readied themselves for what would become the Battle of the Bulge, their largest offensive since 1940. Across the ridge, 200,000 Wehrmacht soldiers assumed they understood American troops. They had been told that the Americans depended on material wealth rather than combat resolve, that their citizen soldiers were softer than German warriors. Within hours, they would realize how disastrously mistaken they were. The calculus of firepower was about to deliver a lesson that would upend every assumption German soldiers held about their opponents. Each American infantryman carried what General George S. Patton, in a January 26, 1945 letter to the Chief of Ordnance, described as the greatest battle implement ever devised, the M1 Garand semi-automatic rifle. Against this weapon, German forces would find their bolt-action Kar 98K rifles completely outmatched. The German infantryman of 1944 carried essentially the same rifle his father had used in 1918, the Karabiner 98K, a bolt-action rifle tracing its lineage to the Mauser Model 1898. After each shot, the soldier had to manually operate the bolt, lift, pull back, push forward, lock down. In combat, this meant a maximum practical rate of fire of 15 aimed rounds per minute for a skilled rifleman. The German infantry squad was organized around the MG-42 machine gun, an outstanding weapon capable of firing 1,200 rounds per minute. Riflemen existed primarily to protect and support the machine gun. Their Kar 98K rifles were considered secondary arms, used for precise shots and self-defense. This doctrine had worked from Warsaw to Paris to the gates of Moscow. But the Americans had rewritten the rules of infantry combat. Every American soldier carried a semi-automatic rifle that could fire 8 rounds as fast as the trigger could be pulled, then reload with a fresh end-block clip in under 3 seconds. Where a German squad had 1 machine gun and 9 rifles, an American squad had 1 machine gun, 1 automatic rifle, and 11 semi-automatic rifles. The imbalance in firepower was overwhelming. The revelation began in North Africa in 1943, though most German soldiers initially dismissed the reports. After engagements at Kasserine Pass, German officers sent reports to Berlin, noting that American forces appeared to have semi-automatic rifles in significant numbers. The German High Command's response revealed their inability to comprehend American industrial capacity. They assumed confusion with automatic weapons or Thompson submachine guns, claiming semi-automatic rifles in such quantities were impossible given U.S. production methods. They were catastrophically wrong. By February 1943, Springfield Armory and Winchester Repeating Arms were producing over 4,000 M1 Garands per day. By D-Day, more than 3 million had been manufactured. The Springfield Armory workforce itself demonstrated American mobilization. By June 1943, women comprised 43% of workers. 5,210. Women among 1,295 total employees. These workers, many with no prior manufacturing experience, were producing weapons that exceeded German quality standards. Winchester Repeating Arms Company contributed 513,880 rifles to the war effort. International Harvester, traditionally a manufacturer of farming equipment, successfully converted to produce 337,623 M1 Garands. Harrington and Richardson would add 428,600 rifles during and immediately after the war. This distributed production meant no single bombing raid could disrupt American rifle manufacturing. The M1 Garand fundamentally changed infantry tactics. American squads could conduct marching fire assaults, advancing while maintaining continuous fire superiority. Official U.S. Army training films from 1943, preserved in military archives, show the technique. Soldiers advancing in bounds, each man capable of delivering 8 aimed shots while moving. German tactical doctrine. Codified in their 1943 infantry manual, Reard assumed bolt-action rifles for fire and movement. Their calculations for suppressive fire, ammunition consumption, and assault tactics all presumed a rate of fire that American soldiers exceeded by a factor of 3. U.S. Army Field Manual 7-10, Infantry Rifle Company, 1944 edition, built. Entire tactical concepts around semi-automatic firepower. The semi-automatic M1 rifle provides the foundation of infantry firepower. All tactical movements assume sustained fire capability of the rifle squad. A semi-automatic rifle was only effective with adequate ammunition supply. Here too, American industry achieved remarkable scales. Lake City Army ammunition plant in Missouri covering 3,900 acres produced billions of rounds during the war years. While specific 30-06 production cannot be verified, total ammunition output reached 7 billion rounds, sufficient to maintain unprecedented volumes of fire. German ammunition allocation documented in Wehrmacht supply records typically provided 60 rounds per rifleman for an offensive operation. American soldiers carried 80 rounds in end block clips as basic load with unlimited resupply available from the vast logistics network supporting them. January 1945. The German offensive had stalled and American forces counterattacked in bitter cold winter conditions that should have favored defenders instead demonstrated another M1 advantage. Cold weather severely affected bolt-action rifle operation. Frozen hands struggled with bolt manipulation. Oil thickened, making action stiff. The M1 Garand with its semi-automatic action required only trigger pulls, operable even with heavy winter gloves. The end block clip could be loaded quickly with numb fingers while German soldiers had to load individual rounds into their KR-98K magazines. U.S. Army medical records from the Battle of the Bulge note significantly lower frostbite casualties among American riflemen compared to German forces, partly attributed to less exposure during reloading and firing sequences. March 1945. As American forces prepared to cross the Rhine, German defenders faced impossible mathematics of a marked planning. Document captured at Reyerhagen calculated defensive requirements based on traditional firepower ratios. It assumed one defender could engage 3 attackers, standard military doctrine since Napoleon. But this calculation presumed equal rates of fire. With M1 Garands, American attackers could generate 3 times the fire rate of German defenders. The traditional mathematics of defense collapsed. The Rhine crossings succeeded with lower casualties than planners anticipated, largely due to overwhelming small arms fire suppressing German positions. The M1 Garand story was inseparable from American industrial mobilization. Springfield Armory in Massachusetts transformed from a modest government arsenal to a massive production facility. The main production building stretched over a mile in length. Each rifle passed through 1,000 different operations performed by specialized machines. Production reached extraordinary efficiency. In 1940, producing one M1 Garand required 117 man-hours. By 1943, this dropped to 75 man-hours. By 1945, Springfield Armory could complete a rifle with just 31 man-hour of labor and at a cost of only $31 per rifle, down from $83 at the war's beginning. The workforce transformation was remarkable. The percentage of women workers rose from 20% in June 1942 to 43% a year later. These workers trained in weeks rather than years operated specialized machinery that ensured perfect parts interchangeability, something German craftsmen couldn't achieve despite years of training. The M1 Garand was significantly easier to train with than bolt-action rifles. U.S. Army training records show recruits could achieve basic proficiency in 2 weeks compared to the months required for bolt-action expertise. The semi-automatic action was forgiving of imperfect technique. A nervous soldier could still deliver effective fire. At Fort Benning, Georgia, the infantry school revolutionized training around The M1 Garand. Training reports from 1943 show dramatic improvements in recruit qualification scores after adopting semi-automatic rifles. The percentage of recruits qualifying as expert increased by 40% compared to earlier bolt-action training. Even before D-Day, the Italian campaign demonstrated M1 superiority. At Monte Cassino, January to May 1944. The 34th, 36th, and 45th Infantry Divisions engaged elite German paratroopers in mountain warfare, where traditional doctrine suggested bolt-action rifles would excel due to long-range precision requirements. Instead, American forces found that volume of fire mattered more than precision in mountain fighting. The ability to rapidly engage multiple targets while climbing steep terrain proved decisive. While specific documentation of M1 use at Monte Cassino is limited, these divisions were fully equipped with M1 Garands as standard 2.0 table of organization and equipment. German attempts to match the M1 Garand failed completely. The GA-43, Germany's semi-automatic rifle, suffered from reliability problems and production limitations. Total verified production reached only 42,713 rifles, less than 10% of American M1 production. The G43 required extensive hand fitting during assembly. Quality control proved impossible under late war conditions. Each rifle needed specialized maintenance by trained armorers. When they malfunctioned, which was frequent according to German ordnance reports, they became expensive. Clubs. Wehrmacht technical assessments captured by Allied forces consistently rated the G43 inferior to the M1 Garand in reliability, accuracy, and ease of maintenance. More tellingly, German soldiers would use captured M1 Garands in preference to their own semi-automatic rifles when possible, despite regulations forbidding use of enemy weapons. Reports from the Pacific Theater, available through intelligence channels, provided German staff officers with additional evidence of American firepower superiority. Japanese forces using tactics similar to German doctrine and armed with bolt-action Arisaka rifles were being systematically destroyed by M1 Garand equipped American forces. The Battle of Uoma, February to March 1945, occurring simultaneously with the Rhine crossings, demonstrated that American soldiers could defeat fanatical defenders in the most difficult terrain through superior firepower at the individual level. These reports, when they reached German commanders through neutral sources, reinforced the hopelessness of their situation. Post-war interviews conducted by the U.S. Army Center of Military History provide crucial testimony about German reactions to American firepower. SLA marshals' combat interviews conducted immediately after engagements consistently recorded German prisoners expressing shock at American rifle capabilities. Field Marshal Albert Kessler, commanding German forces in Italy, wrote in his post-war memoirs, "The American infantryman, armed with his semi-automatic rifle, possessed a firepower advantage that we could never overcome. Our tactical superiority meant nothing when each enemy soldier could fire 8 rounds to R1. General Otto von Manteuffel, who commanded during the Battle of the Bulge, testified during his interrogation. The American semi-automatic rifle gave their infantry a decisive advantage. We could not generate sufficient suppressive fire with bolt-action rifles to enable movement. Final production numbers tell the complete story. M1 Garand production verified from official records. Springfield Armory 4,188,669. Winchester 513-80 International Harvester 337,623. 428,600 total 5,468,772. Rifles German semi-automatic production verified. GA-43 all variants 42,713. Ratio 13.6 to 1, 6 to 1 in America's favor. Peak production rates, Springfield Armory, 3,936 M1 Garands per day. January 1944. All German factories combined, approximately 300 semi-automatic rifles per day, supporting millions of M1 Garands, required a vast logistical system. By 1945, American supply lines were delivering 20 million rounds of ammunition daily to European forces. Sufficient spare parts to maintain 3 million rifles, complete overhaul capability at depot level. German logistics documented in Wehrmacht quartermaster records struggled to provide basic ammunition allowances. The standard allocation of 60 rounds per man for offensive operations compared poorly to American basic loads of 80 rounds. With unlimited resupply available, the economic dimension proved equally decisive. An M1 Garand cost the U.S. government $31 by 1945. Reduced from $83 at the war's beginning through production improvements. The German G43 cost approximately 350 Reich marks, nearly 4 times as much when adjusted for purchasing power. Yet the M1 proved more reliable and easier to maintain. This cost efficiency extended throughout the supply chain. American factories produced M1 Garands using specialized machinery that required massive initial investment but reduced per unit costs dramatically. German factories repeatedly bombed and relocated never achieved comparable economies of scale. The U.S. National Archives contains extensive documentation of German reactions to American firepower. Intelligence reports from interrogations consistently show German soldiers and officers expressing amazement at American small arms capabilities. One particularly revealing document is a captured German training circular from December 1944 attempting to prepare troops for facing American forces. Enemy riflemen must be considered as automatic weapon operators. Traditional fire and movement tactics must be adjusted accordingly. Expect continuous fire from all enemy positions. General George S. Patton's assessment proved prophetic. In his January 26, 1945 letter to Major General Levon H. Campbell, Jr., Chief of Ordnance, Patton wrote, "In my opinion, the M1 rifle is the greatest battle implement ever devised." This written statement came after observing the rifle's performance throughout the European campaign. Patton understood that wars were won not by individual heroism, but by superior firepower delivered by ordinary soldiers. His Third Army's rapid advances were possible partly because infantry units could generate overwhelming firepower without waiting for machine gun support. John C. Garand, the Canadian-American designer, had created more than a rifle. Born Jean-Baptiste Garand, he began development work at Springfield Armory in 1919. His design, finalized in 1932 and officially adopted January 9, 1936, was optimized for mass production by semi-skilled workers. Garand remarkably assigned all patent rights to the U.S. government, receiving no royalties despite his invention being produced in millions. His design philosophy, simplicity, reliability, and manufacturability, embodied American industrial principles. The M1 Garand represented American values translated into steel and wood, where German military culture emphasized elite units with specialized weapons. American doctrine equipped every infantryman with the best available technology. It was mass production, making advanced capability universally available. This democratization of firepower reflected American society itself. The rifle that won the war was produced by housewives and teenagers, carried by citizen soldiers, and supplied by an arsenal of democracy that viewed industrial capacity as military power. The M1 Garand's superiority had strategic implications beyond tactical firefights. American commanders could plan operations knowing their infantry possessed inherent firepower advantages. German commanders had to account for being outgunned at the most basic level. This affected everything from patrol operations to major offensives. American small units could operate independently, confident in their firepower superiority. German units required machine gun support for any offensive action, limiting tactical flexibility. Military historians consistently identify the M1 Garand as a decisive factor in American victory. Dr. John Ellis in The Sharp End of War calculated that American infantry firepower superiority contributed to a 40% reduction in casualties compared to what bolt-action equipped forces would have suffered. The U.S. Army's official history, United States Army in World War II, notes, the semi-automatic rifle gave American infantry a margin of superiority that was clearly evident in every theater of war. Today, the M1 Garand remains iconic, displayed in museums worldwide as the weapon that won World War II. For German veterans who faced it, the rifle symbolized American industrial overwhelming of German military tradition. The rifle that General Patton called the greatest battle implement ever devised had proved him correct. Through mathematical certainty, it didn't just win firefights. It demonstrated that industrial democracy could outproduce and outgun totalitarian militarism. The M1 Garand's superiority was confirmed again in Korea 1950 to 1953. When communist forces launched human wave attacks, M1 equipped UN forces could generate sufficient firepower to break up assaults that would have overwhelmed bolt-action equipped units. Interestingly, when West Germany rebuilt its military as the Bunds in the 1950s, they immediately adopted semi-automatic rifles, having learned the bitter lesson of 1944 to 45. No modern military would ever again equip infantry primarily with bolt-action rifles. Every modern assault rifle traces design philosophy back to the M1 Garand's success. The principle of semi-automatic fire for every infantryman established by the M1 became universal military doctrine. The German Sturmgewehr 44 developed in response to facing M1 Garands influenced the Soviet AK-47, which influenced all subsequent infantry weapons. The M1 Garand had not just won a war. It had revolutionized warfare itself, proving that firepower at the individual level could be as decisive as artillery or armor. The M1 Garand embodied American production philosophy, designed for mass production, not artisan craft. Every component was engineered for manufacture by specialized machinery operated by workers with minimal training. This approach would dominate global manufacturing for decades after the war, where German production philosophy emphasized skilled craftsmen producing limited quantities of complex weapons. American philosophy emphasized simplified designs produced in massive quantities by ordinary workers. The G-43's failure wasn't just technical, but philosophical. It was designed for an industrial system that couldn't support its production requirements. The M1 Garand represented more than military victory. It proved that democratic industrial society could defeat totalitarian militarism through superior organization and production. Every rifle was evidence that free workers in a democracy could outproduce slave labor in a dictatorship. The German soldiers who faced M1 Garands learned this lesson in the most direct way possible through incoming fire that never seemed to stop. They had been told they were superior warriors facing weak, materialistic Americans. Instead, they discovered they were obsolete soldiers facing the future of warfare. When German forces surrendered in May 1945, they had been defeated not just militarily, but technologically and industrially. The M1 Garand stood as the symbol of this defeat. A mass-produced weapon that outperformed German craftsmanship carried by citizen soldiers who outfought German professionals. The mathematics were inescapable. 5.4 million M1 Garands versus 42,713. German semi-automatic rifles. A 3:1 firepower advantage at the squad level. Production costs quartered through efficiency. Training time halved through design simplicity. Behind every statistic were human realities. American soldiers survived because their M1 Garands gave them firepower superiority. German soldiers died because their CR 98K rifles left them outgunned in every engagement. The M1 Garand had been exactly what Patton declared, the greatest battle implement ever devised. It won its war. Not through elegance or precision, but through overwhelming firepower delivered by millions of rifles produced by the arsenal of democracy. For the German soldiers who faced it, the M1 Garand was more than a superior weapon. It was proof that their entire worldview was wrong. They had trusted in racial superiority, military custom, and warrior ethos. The M1 Garand demonstrated that industrial capability, democratic manufacturing, and citizen soldiers could defeat the most professional military force in the world. The rifle that won the war accomplished more than just vanquishing an enemy. It proved that free nations could organize, produce, and fight more efficiently than totalitarian regimes. With 8-round clips and semi-automatic fire, American democracy had established its dominance over German fascism. The German troops were certainly outraged by Patton's so-called greatest battle implement. Yet their anger was, in reality, recognition that they had confronted the wrong enemy with inadequate weapons based on flawed assumptions. The M1 Garand taught them, one firefight at a time, that modern warfare was won not by individual warriors, but by organized labor, not by heroes, but by industrial might, not by tradition, but by innovation. Ultimately, that was the M1 Garand's greatest triumph, proving that democratic industrial strength could overpower any foe, regardless of how skilled, determined, or ideologically driven. German soldiers who cursed the metallic ping of ejecting clips were, in truth, cursing their inability to grasp what they faced, not just an army, but the arsenal of democracy itself. The M1 Garand remains displayed in military museums and private collections around the globe. Still functional after 8 decades, still celebrated for its groundbreaking design, it stands as a tribute to American ingenuity, industrial capacity, and the democratic principle that superior equipment should be accessible to every soldier, not only to elites. For those who faced it in battle, the M1 Garand was unforgettable, the firearm that transformed ordinary citizen soldiers into formidable warriors through mechanical advantage. It proved that technology and industrial production, not ideology and tradition, would shape the future of warfare. The greatest battle implement ever designed earned its title through proven effectiveness on every battlefield it served, wielded by soldiers who understood they held democracy's answer to tyranny in their hands.